high five. Go ahead.
All right, here I am, everybody. Welcome to the Adtalk show, where the buy side and sell side come together and expose the naked truth to each other. So if you're here for the controversy, you're in the right place. And now, Adam and Gareth.
Morning,
Hello.
Adam.
Hello, America. Hello, Adtech world. I'm Adam, founder CEO of Chalice.
I'm Gareth, the founder and CEO of Gamera.
And this is Ad Talk, the show where the buy side and sell side come together. This show came out of me and Gareth asking questions, what we always wanted to know about, what I always wanted to know about the sell side. Gareth asking me what he always wanted to know about the buy side. We liked the way we answered each other's questions and always had a good time and made others laugh. So we decided to open it up to all of you starting today with our pilot episode. Thanks to our producer, David Maldo from Let's Go Video, and designer Marley Baker, who's not here today. So, now, David, we're getting some lingering audio. Is everything all right?
Yeah, I think everything's okay. Are you hearing yourself echo or something?
Hearing the 30 seconds ago. Oh, amazing, because I have
Oh,
YouTube.
mute yourself on YouTube. Yeah.
I got it. All right, good. All right, that's it. And we're off. Garrett, do you want to kick it off with a question you asked for me to teach everyone how this goes?
I would love to kick it off.
Okay.
So, the first thing that you told me about Adam that I had never considered is you sent me a cryptic LinkedIn message that totally blew my mind and quite honestly confused me. And that LinkedIn message was, how do you optimize a campaign where you don't tell the DSP about conversions? And I was like, well, why would that ever happen? Why is that a thing? Like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I can't. So let's start there. Let's tell me where your head was at. Like, let's talk about that because it's so interesting to me.
Yeah, well, a really common scenario is that the conversions are offline and the DSP doesn't know anything about them. And I don't know why this isn't talked about more because it's everyone in CPG, pretty much everyone who's selling a car or anything in a grocery store or a drugstore. There's a huge amount of commerce, right? It's just not e-commerce. The platforms are made for e-commerce, and the valuations, when I say the valuations, I mean like the prices that it's looking for are based on a prediction of e-commerce value. So there is no e-commerce value if you're
Right.
selling chocolate bars in grocery stores. So I was wondering how the sell side deals with that. How do they know if this impression is likely to drive a conversion for the chocolate bar seller?
Oh my gosh. And that's such a funny question for me because the sell side doesn't know about the e-com conversions. Like I actually think one of the biggest problems, I think that and like I'm writing about this right now. I'm writing an article about this today, was working on it this morning. Um, One of the biggest problems we have is that the sell side has no clue what the buy side cares about. No clue. And there's no feedback loop. The only feedback loop the sell side has is they can run a report in GAN and be like, well, my CTR on this ad unit is this. I guess it's a good ad unit. And that's what they have. And meanwhile, the DSPs are out there and have these tremendous algorithms. Well, supposedly, I'm actually rather disillusioned with DSP algorithms, but they supposedly have these tremendous algorithms that are making these very complex valuations, and publishers are just kind of like out of the loop. Um, so
Yeah.
I think it's a big problem. Yeah.
What about even at the most basic level? Say all this kind of valuation of website value started with remarketing. So if I'm an e-commerce seller, I sell online widgets, and someone abandoned the cart, um, and I'm going to bid up for it, doesn't the publisher figure out who's in what remarketing pools by seeing like crazy bids come through and people like Criteo that specialize in remarketing picking off certain IDs?
Yeah. So in the beginning, no, because publishers have no idea who's bidding what, where, and when. Um, and I would still say for 80% of publishing, they just don't have the infrastructure to do the analysis that you just alluded to. Um, Nah, which is crazy, right? Like, isn't that bonkers?
Don't they know who the advertiser is? Don't they know Weight Watchers bought this ad and placed the Weight Watchers ad? Then they know that user must be in market for weight loss.
So comically, they do now at some percentage. So basically, the modern iteration of things is pre-bid, and this is something that I was working on in pre-bid because I actually think that this should be centralized in pre-bid. Pre-bid now asks exchanges to send through something called a domain. And so when an advertiser is buying an impression, the DSP sends through a bid. Included with the bid is the A domain, which is the landing page of the creative that it's bidding. Historically, in order to report on that, you had to run a report in the exchange. And the exchanges would not give you like log level data. Like that's not a thing. So the extent of the granularity you would have is an exchange would be like, oh, hey, yesterday, this advertiser spent this much money at this CPM on your site. Which is not user level, so you don't know which users they want. And it's also in aggregate, so like sometimes it's remarketing, sometimes it's not. Like who knows why people are in market? But that has evolved, where pre-bid has a little bit more heft now, and they can say, hey, we should have people say what A domains are with their pre-bid bids. So the exchanges are now expected, and they still not 100% of the time, but a percentage of the time they send it through.
What's
And
pre-bid?
that's the beginning.
What's
And that's
pre-bid?
pre-bid.
What is
Oh,
pre?
oh my
The
goodness.
buy side
Okay.
is like my double verify pre-bid
Oh
model.
no. Yeah, it's so funny. I had a call with with an anti-fraud company. Uh, like this is probably 3 years ago. I had a call with a guy named Shailen Dar, who is a super nice guy. He's a buddy of mine.
Good man.
Yeah, I love Shailen. And we're talking on the call, and I keep saying pre-bid because I'm the chair of pre-bid JS at the time. Like when I think of pre-bid, I think of our open. So what pre-bid is, like for the sell side, is an open source framework to hold an on-page auction of bids that then gets sent into GAM. But the reason that the on-page auction of bids is valuable is it allows all of the ad exchanges that a publisher is working with, or all of the ad networks, or all of the whoever that a publisher is working with, to pay per impression and to send an actual price through and hold what is actually the final auction for serving ads. This is a tremendous innovation, by the way, because this is not how the world worked for a long time. Prior to this, the world worked through something called a waterfall, which is I'm a publisher, I work with 5 ad exchanges, I send it to ad exchanges one at a time. There's no pricing control, there's no unified auction. I just go, well, I like Rubicon, so I'm going to send it to Rubicon first. And Rubicon gets me the best price that they can. And I get reporting the next day that's like, hey, Rubicon filled this percentage and you got this CPM. Like, great. And maybe I use price floors to try and make it complicated and optimize it, but it was a mess. That was actually what RTK, my last company, did originally, was an ad server to manage waterfalling exchanges. But Prebid fixed all of that, where it was like exchanges can now bid, and there's another auction that occurs inside of publishers.
Okay, so they fixed this problem of not knowing who the advertiser is. But if,
Huh?
in my example, Weight Watchers won the auction and served their ad, the publisher had to know that because the ad was published on their page. So they had to know Weight Watchers won an auction here.
I mean, when they saw it, yeah, but like
Didn't go back.
publishers are serving millions of ads. There's just tons.
They
And
couldn't
here's the
match
thing.
the auction.
Yeah, what was that?
They can't match the ad service to the auction that resulted in that ad.
Um, No. Oh my gosh. My goodness, no. Like there are the amount of data involved in doing that and the infrastructure involved in doing that. So to match to an actual auction, you would need log level data from Google. And even then it would only be aware of AdX auctions, who the winner was in AdX auctions. And Google charges some astronomical amount for this. So the vast majority of publishers don't have it. It's not a thing. Google did roll out some price band reporting stuff where they'll tell you, oh, hey, this brand bought in your like $5 to $6 CPM
Yeah,
bucket
they weren't really
yesterday.
they weren't helping with what publishers needed to do, which now they
No.
think as long as they could get the data that AI would really help with, right? You could send an AI chatbot or an advanced algorithm like Chalice's to tell you these are the circumstances where buyers bid up and these are the circumstances where they bid low.
Yeah, so we're seeing a few things there. And so I mean, so one of them is one that we work on that you're not going to like, but it's price floors. And so price floors are a strange thing. Like they're a strange thing. And the reason they're a strange thing is because we live in first price auctions now, which means that in theory, like there are, this is the unified theory of price floors for publishers. Um, the abstract theory is if I set a price floor for things that I know are valuable, people will pay me more for those things.
That's not really what it is. It's to avoid people winning too low, right? That's how I interpret price floor. They're just making sure I don't bid super low and win anyway.
But in a first price auction, the desired behavior of a price floor, what if you set it too high and nobody bids high? You just don't get
Yeah.
paid. And there's like some thesis that, oh, well, when they see that they're not winning, they'll increase their bidding. And I just don't think that's a thing. For one of your for one of your campaigns at Chalice, right? Like how many sites do they buy on? Like
Yeah.
tons, right? Like tons and tons of sites. If a certain number of impressions are getting price floored out and your bids aren't winning, um, you're just gonna buy on other sites. Like that's what's gonna happen. The likelihood that you go, oh, we really want to win on this site, we're gonna increase our bids here, even though like our valuation is X and we're bidding our valuation basically, it's just you're not gonna spend more.
So we do kind of like floors because Chalice is figuring out how to do what you just said, but it's super hard. You have to randomize the bidding and run simulations. So if you randomize the bidding and run simulations, then you find places saying, oh, if we systematically bid up in this scenario, we'll have a better overall CPA, right? Because
It's because it's valuable. So I think that the flip side of floors, where floors work, and the reason floors work, and people use my data for floors, is signaling. And I'm a publisher. I think this is a valuable user because I've observed this in XYZ scenarios. I'm going to tell you that I think this is a valuable user, and you're going to take that into your model as a signal and basically bid shade up, where it's like, okay, our valuation is 10. We think we can win at 7, but the publisher told us we should probably bid 8. We're going to think about that, right? Like we're going to take that into account. Maybe we bid a little more because the publisher signaled, oh, you're going to need to bid more to win this. And I do buy that. I buy that as a use case. Signaling floors is a use case.
only if they're talking, right? Or if the buyer's having trouble pacing. The buyer's attitude is there's infinite inventory, especially in display. So we should never bid up. We should just bid low and try to spread it further. That's the normal mentality.
Totally. And what I just said, by the way, is like the Boy Scout version of this. The actual thing that happens with this is I, as a publisher, send through random price floors and see who I can get to bid more based on when I signal. Like it's totally unrelated to the value of users. It is literally we're in algorithm games where how can I game your algorithm to get it to pay me more money? And that is a thing. Like it works, especially unsophisticated algorithms that are looking at floors. So I Trade Desk wrote that whole article, like, we're going to ignore these because we can tell that you're doing this. Like these floors are unrelated to anything. You're just trying to get us to bid more. Yeah, it's crazy. Floors are crazy.
Do you, as a publisher, understand why a DSP would bid two different things for the same bid request?
Bid two different things for the same bid request.
Like you say, like they change everything is the same except the floor, or they just send out the duplicate bid request to 20 different suppliers, and then instead again, and like you say, to fool the DSP. Do you understand why the DSP gets fooled that way? Because a real algorithm would say, given the features of this bid request, I will bid that.
Yeah, I mean, I live in a world. I this is like I live in Gareth's world for this, where there is some beautiful abstract value that an algorithm has applied to every bid request that comes in. There is some like, and I know that the world is imperfect and this is just not a thing, but there is like a beautiful number where a bid request comes in and your decision tree algorithm goes, all right, I think this has $7 in value to my campaign.
Yeah,
Um,
that's how it should work.
That's how it should work. But then there's a second order thing that happens, which is okay, we think it has $7 in value, but we live in first price auction land, which means if I bid $7, I'm going to pay $7. And I don't want to do that because I could probably get it cheaper. Um, so the question then becomes, how much cheaper do I bid? And I think that's where the two prices come in, and that's where the game comes in for the floors. Is it's how do I try and guess what their valuation is, and then how do I try and sneak it up with a floor signal to counteract the bid shading that has to occur, like it has to, because it's the world that we live in. But that's my read. Is that fair?
Yeah, except you didn't say pacing. I think that the platform algorithms have to have sophisticated pacing algorithms, and it's those that can be fooled if they think they're pacing
Oh.
it up to pace. This is a real frustration. If an advertiser has 50K to spend in a 4-month campaign, they should want to spend it on the best possible 50K in that 4-month period. But the reality is they want even pacing by week or sometimes by day, right? So which completely changes the values of the same bid request depending on how well or poorly you're pacing that day.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, especially if you're
Like
serving
that's crazy.
advertisers at the same time, right? Anyone who's pacing behind has to bid more and more to keep pace.
Right, right, right. All right, so I have a question for you. So you guys have these custom valuation algorithms. Do you pace for people? Is that like part of what you do? Or do you have to deal with the fact that the DSP is making pacing decisions and they're like weirdly at odds with your valuation decisions? And now the number that eventually gets spit out is some weird Frankenstein.
Yeah, this is a challenge for Chalice. We have two choices to either use the DSP pacing algorithm or to try to pace ourselves. And to pace for an individual advertiser is super hard because you don't have the prediction, you don't have the avails prediction that a DSP has, right? So as you know, we're now deploying sell side and index, which gives us a lot more data and a lot more ability to forecast, but we're still not really getting into pacing algorithms. We're mostly using DSP pacing algorithms and trying to limit the extent to which they're fooled. And
Yeah, totally.
urge advertisers not to worry too much about pacing, especially if value is uneven, right? That you should exploit the value when it's there.
100%. I mean, I'll never forget. So, Brian's been publishing like his history of ad tech. There was something that we rolled out at AppNexus, and I've seen this concept come out recently as well, where people have been talking about this again. The
How big
concept of a
Brian is. I'm always thinking of Maldo there in the booth. Loves Adtech, but doesn't know much about it. He won't know who Brian is.
Brian O'Kelly. So Brian O'Kelly is now running Scope 3, but he was the founder of AppNexus, which is the first company that I worked at. And before that, he was the CTO of Right Media. And he's been releasing his history of ad tech, which for someone like me who was at AppNexus is a really fun read because like my first job at AppNexus was literally to kill Right Media. That was like my job. Like Gareth, get all the Right Media companies, put them on AppNexus. You're going to talk to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Tel Aviv, Israel, all day, every day. That's going to be your life. It was actually like really fun, and it's also fascinating that there are lots of companies that are half Argentinian and half Israeli. It's super interesting. Like there's like a massive cultural exchange that exists there.
I hope
Um,
probably not Israel because of the time zone of a live show, but maybe Buenos Aires. All right. And Brian's a Chalice investor. Is he a Gamma investor?
yeah, I haven't raised money yet. But we'll see. We'll see. I talked to him about it, and
All
he
right.
ribs me about it. He jokes with me about it. But one of the things we rolled out this is still the second price auction era. So let me back up, explain what a second price auction is, a Victory auction. So that thing that we were talking about earlier, where advertisers have two prices in mind. They have their value, like what they think that it is worth to them, and then they have to figure out what they should pay. And there's a delta between those two things because the value could be way higher than the buyer has to pay to win the impression. So we invented this thing called bid shading, but in reality, what it is, it's an optimization where like buyers are trying to not overpay, but still win underneath the value that they think is there. The Victory auction is the original solution to that. And it's a really smart solution. Like Victory auctions are really smart. It is a, listen, we're going to hold an auction where we want everyone to just bid the value, and people are only going to pay the what it would have taken to beat the second highest bid. So they're going to pay. So let's say the top bid's $10. The second highest bid is $7. The $10 bid wins, but only pays $7, or they pay $7.01, depending on the exchange. Victory auctions were super smart. They were a really elegant solution to this thing that we're talking about, where buyers have values that they have assigned to impressions, and they are going to then send whatever that is, and the auction mechanic takes care of the fact that they never ever have to overpay. The problem is, well, the problem's twofold with Victory auctions. With Adtech specific, first we got greedy in Adtech. So in AppNexus, they invented this thing called a soft floor. And a soft floor meant that any bid beneath the soft floor, which is a number you could type into their UI, would no longer bid reduce. So the soft floor would create a fake second bid directly beneath the price of the bid by the advertiser.
This is one of the things Google got in trouble for in their antitrust case they just lost.
It's cheating. It breaks the point of a second price auction. Like if this thing exists, if soft floors exist, there is no reason to have a second price auction. And I'll never forget, Criteo freaked out. They were like, because Criteo's whole thing at the time was they are a retargeter, like you mentioned, right? Cart abandoners, they go out, they find them, they bring them back. They were doing prediction math where they were finding value deltas, where can we find the cheapest impressions that have the highest value for us? And by maximizing that delta, they maximize performance. It's actually very smart. It's a very sophisticated way to do retargeting. But they noticed all of a sudden they were paying their valuation or close to their valuation on these impressions where they weren't before. And they were like, you need to turn this off immediately. Like, this is stealing money from us. I remember they got really mad. So the like world of the Victory auction was taken away from us by like sell side greed, basically. Not in the fact that there's a second auction that occurs in GAM that happens with a GAM price, but that's and that was the real impetus to abandon second price auctions. But we were greedy before that with our floors. We were naughty.
A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of competitive tactics that are legal if you don't have market power and illegal if you do have market power. Market power being the ability to set prices for the whole market. So AppNexus doing that and Google doing that are not the same thing. Well, let me get your reaction to the case. You wrote something, and you wrote something on Twitter, and I commented under you. There's going to be other ad servers, and you're going to have to get your mind out of the GAM way of thinking. What do you think?
Yeah, so I've become like wildly anti-ad server. And this is just the evolution of the industry where we've built everything on the sell side around GAM because every publisher had to have AdX. So you had to have AdX to get AdWords demand. They said they put AdWords demand in DV360. They're full of it. Like if you wanted actual AdWords demand, you wanted actual AdSense buying on your site, it all flowed through AdX. And basically that meant that every single publisher on the web had to install this piece of software that is Google Ad Manager. And I had a few tweets about it. One of them is that like most pubs don't need that. Like the most publisher implementations in GAM. So let's describe what an ad server does. An ad server has creative management the same way a DSP does. It has targeting the same way a DSP does. And it has pacing and it has all those things, all DSP features. but they're made just to operate within your single publisher environment. And ad servers actually predate DSPs. So we had ad servers first, and we built DSPs later. DSP being an ad network ad server, essentially, that can buy across lots and lots of websites. So most publishers, though, in 2025, do not have direct sales teams. They do not have people who go out to advertisers and get creatives, who need pacing, who need targeting, who need that stuff. Most pubs don't have that. There's a very elite group of publishers who do, but most don't. Yet, every single publisher has to use this tool that was built to do that. Like, that's a crazy fact. That is, for me, like, that is the tying argument summarized, is how many, and we're talking millions of publishers. Like, if you look at AdX's ads.txt, Google apparently works with 1.2 million publishers, 1.2 million domains.
Yeah. That's the simplest way to describe the case. Is like, imagine every store in the world had to have a certain cash register, right?
That they didn't need.
That they didn't need. Yeah, that's all it is. It's your store. You should be able to do what you want.
Yeah, it's like, no. If you want to have locks on your doors, for us to give you the locks on your doors, you have to use our cash register that can only transact in a currency that you don't use. So it's just going to sit there and do nothing, which most instances of GAM sit there and do nothing. They have two line items in them. They have pre-bid line items, which is for pre-bid to send in bids from the ad exchanges, and they have AdX line items, which is for AdX to compete with the pre-bid bids. And that's all that's in there. And that's wild. That's a crazy thing because they charge to use this. Like, it costs money. It's not free. It's free when AdX wins, and it's free under a certain number of impressions per month. But tons and tons of publishers pay Google software fees for this piece of software that they do not need. I also I would love to see those numbers, because let's say in the perfect world where they're decoupled, and AdX now has to stand on its own 2 feet as an ad exchange, and it bids into pre-bid, which is what it should do. How much revenue does Google lose? Well, what are their GAM fees every year? I don't know. It could actually be a meaningful amount of money. It could be tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. It's perfectly possible.
Not to Google. Yeah, it's
I know, but not to them.
Millions. It's just
it's so which by the way makes me so crazy about this whole thing, because it's not meaningful to Google. So why did they get themselves in trouble doing this? How could it possibly have been worth it to exert this monopolistic force?
I think they just got obsessed with stopping other websites from getting good at monetization. And that's what I want this trial to be the starting gun for, is if you have tech that can monetize websites better, like you do, this is it. Now you finally have a chance to prove it and grow that business up and get people, get the right incentives so the publishers get paid when they lay out pages with greater clarity and they have higher quality content and attract a more affluent audience or a bigger audience. All these things that publishers haven't been incented to do should now become ways to make money in publishing like they used to be.
I am so excited about it. Because honestly, the internet is also built in Google's image. And what I mean by that is AdWords demand was 30 to 40% of most publishers' revenue. Think about that. One network was 30 to 40% of their revenue. And that network buys on a very specific model. It buys on a CPC.
Yep.
So that means that all websites for 30 to 40% of their revenue care about one thing and one thing only: clicks. That's it. Because that's Google. It's double click, right? That's what publishers optimize their websites for. And
if you love clickbait and you love every publisher trending toward clickbait over the course of your life, you should be a big fan of Google and their monetization. And if you don't, you're sick of clickbait. It's a simple trial. People love to get into the details, but I think in that 10 minutes we just spent on it, hopefully we told people what they really need to know in the industry and out.
Well, and you taught me about timing. I didn't know about timing until I heard you describe it. Hey, here's like how monopoly trials work. And when I heard the concept, I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, this is Google's tying. Like, this is a tying argument, and it's a slam dunk. It's so obvious that they are like have these two businesses in different verticals, and to get access to one, you have to use the other, and the other happens to have 90% plus market share. Like, that's crazy. It's a monopoly. Like a
Yeah.
textbook definition of a monopoly. Wow. Craziness.
The real crazy thing for me these past couple weeks, seeing those results come in, is have this experience of being sort of a voice in the wilderness, right? I'm one of the only people who went public complaining about Google, and Brian O'Kelly is another who's publicly denouncing them and talking about these conducts. And most people had to be very close to it to talk about it at all, and they would only talk about it in private. I talk about it in public. I get sort of branded in the public domain as a Google hater and someone whose views are very extreme. So all through the trial, there's a lot of people just looking away, not wanting to cover it in the period between the complaint and the trial, and even during the trial. And then the announcement comes out. I go onto LinkedIn and I see, I'm not surprised by this result, and these results are unsurprising. Unsurprising. 2 weeks ago, I was extreme for saying it. Like the
Yeah, man.
judge's verdict itself says things much worse than I ever said. So someone should be telling me, "Oh, your views were not extreme at all. It turns out you were just spitting facts." I know that's not the way the world works. That's just my little fantasy of people saying, "You know what, Adam, you were right all this time."
I mean, Adam, we all lived in fear, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yes.
definitely a high five moment. We all lived in fear. Like I can RTK, my last company that I sold, Google was probably 30% of our revenue. Like, and revenue that they would disappear, like really disappear. Like for example, one of our publishers got accused of content spam, and not only did Google say they weren't going to pay us $400,000 they owed us going forward, they reached back an extra month and said, by the way, we also want this $200,000 that we already paid to you back. We're
Applaud
going to
that.
apply this as a negative balance in your account. And it was for every red cent of that publisher's revenue. Now they got sued for this, so they don't do this anymore. But that was the extent of their heft, that they could just say this and just say this revenue's gone now. Like this is over. So these people were scared, man. Like publishers
Yes,
were
yeah, let
scared.
me ask you more. Did you ever see the vindictive side of Google expressed by a human being? And do you ever see
Oh,
you ever see people on a power trip from Google?
I actually saw the exact opposite. Um, all of my Google reps, I mean, they always felt bad when something like that
I know.
happened. And they always felt bad. And it was always these decisions come from another building, and we don't know who we would appeal to. Now, I was probably dealing with relatively junior people, so I'm sure
Building,
if like I was,
talking
yeah,
building.
yeah, and that was the omnipresent, omnipotent talking building, and it made money come, it made money go away. It was the magic building, and but they were always like, "We're so sorry. Like, there's nothing we can do. Like, we'll escalate however we can. We'll open tickets, but like, we can't do anything for you." Um, and
What about
yeah,
what
I
about the
felt bad.
boss? Neil Mohan is someone whose name was on all these statements that turned out to be untrue. He was the head of Publisher Tech. Now he's the head of YouTube. I never met the guy, but I don't think he ever worked in advertising. I think he came like from finance to Google or consulting or something. And I always wonder about him as someone who is willing to have his name associated with so many things that are now clearly untrue, if not criminal. Did you ever meet him, and would you consider him a liar?
I never met Neil. Um, Yeah, in all of my interactions with them, it was always with publisher teams. And even when it got escalated to like heads of industry for AdX or like people like that, they really did throw their hands up. They make this argument still when it comes to fraud. So when Google claws back anywhere from anyone, including from ad exchanges, they say, well, we will not tell you why, because if we were to tell you why, we think you could reverse engineer our detection methodologies. And so you're just not getting this money, and that's how the world is. And so I really do think that A, that's total bull dinky. Like
Yeah.
Google, Google bought Virus Total. My CTO loves talking about this. Google bought Virus Total. Virus Total is a company that has basically made viruses go away. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, you were around when computer viruses were a thing. Is it not fascinating that like viruses and worms and things like that, we don't hear about them anymore? Like they're very rare now. Then we hear about
I do
governments
because
doing
my
things,
kids love the Weird Al song "Computer Virus." It took a lot of explanation for them to even begin to
yeah, what's a computer virus? Yeah.
understand.
So the explanation for this is we came to the understanding that siloing security data actually is not the optimal way. The optimal way is to build a huge open source database of how all of the viruses, how they work, and collaborate across the security community with, okay, here is how we build software to counteract and detect and overcome the viruses, and actually use machine learning to detect when something is a virus. Google bought Virus Total, which is the open source company and is the root of all antivirus software. It's used by governments. They know that collaboration is how you detect bad behavior, that there's nothing stronger than the hive mind of humanity. Like it's a powerful, powerful thing. So when they go, yeah, but for it works for viruses, but for ad tech, no, no, we can't tell you. Like that's secret. just trust us. Um, it's
Yeah,
fascinating to
there's like a
me. Like,
sociopathy. Did you read Careless People? I read that over vacation 2 weeks ago.
oh, I didn't get to read it. I was supposed to read it today.
I've really been thinking about it a lot. Like, this is the author was a woman who really wanted. She was a diplomat, worked for the UN, and she really, as Facebook was coming out, thought that that they needed help with public policy and they should be doing diplomacy with governments to balance how much Facebook changes free speech and how much it changes the ability of governments to spread positive information and right. And she was very idealistic about Facebook in the world. And Facebook wasn't even interested. This is like 2012 or something. But she eventually talks them into hiring her. And then over the course of the book, the next few years, they become much more interested into expanding in other countries and getting involved with governments and diplomacy and charity efforts. But what she finds out is that there is no moral center at Facebook, that Sandberg and Zuckerberg and the comms team she was working with, which comes to include this guy, Joel Kaplan, who's a sexually harassing weirdo, uh, that they put on a completely different face to the public and to diplomats. And then what they actually do, that they only care about money. They don't care about any other people. They don't care about these governments or these countries. They don't care that Facebook fueled a genocide in Burma, and
Yeah.
like she is like those people you described at Google who are saying like I'm so sorry, who in her mind was separate from it, but now that she's writing the book and has come to her senses, like realizes that she was enabling it and that her own idealism was being used against her, to be advancing this cause for these people who just were two-faced in a way that a normal person just can't be, right? You break down if you're telling your customers one thing that you know isn't true, and you want to go home and tell yourself you're a good person, right? The average person can't handle it. And she starts to like physically break down. And I think there's like 5 years between when she finally quit and when she was able to write the book, where she had to like decompress and remember who she is. So it's that's what interests me about Google, is that the people are all good, but the person in the building making that decision really has something like we want to look away from. We don't want to believe that people are like that they don't have any sense of moral obligation, right? That they understand their job is to make money, protect shareholder value, maybe protect their family and friends at anything, but basically have no moral obligation to their own employees or customers or the world at large. And it's like a psychological deformity, and you want to look away from it the same way you might want to look away from someone with a physical deformity. We have to look at it like it exists. These people are controlling our communications and our government, and so powerful, and we just have to admit they do not care about the societal impact at all, and that's just how they're wired. They're not going to change.
I mean, it's fascinating.
Like,
I
yeah,
mean, it's an amazing like invective, and I do think it's a step because ad tech is the fuel, right? Like at the core of all of this, ad tech and ads are fueling all of the social media systems that are doing things to our societies that we just aren't ready for. And I think that there's an initial instinct which is, well, these systems can't be biased in one direction because that's bad. If they decide that they're going to take a side on something, then maybe it's the good side today, but what if it's the bad side tomorrow? And I think that we're just coming to the conclusion that letting them run amok is essentially the bad side. So we have to do something. Like we cannot just let them be these like Elon Musk touting about free speech bastions. Because that becomes an engine for bad. Because good doesn't always win in the marketplace of ideas. It's just not how human beings work, and it's a scary thing. It's crazy, and it's really easy, I think, for someone like Zuckerberg to not force himself to come to terms with that, right? To basically look away and say, okay, well, we're just my answer to this question is what makes us more money. That's my answer to this question, and that's how that's how we're going to run the business. Which is it's a cop out, right? Like it is
yeah,
putting your head in the sand and saying, okay, what's happening in the world is not happening in the world, and like
yeah.
this is how I'm going to hide from it.
There's no perfect answer, but it sure seems to me like competition helps. Like I think we'll see this after Google, and if Meta loses their trial, like like if the answer is what makes us more money is always the thing that's worse for the planet, then competition is the solution, right? Because you open up the as long as someone can compete, you open up the opportunity to have a more ethical social media network, an ad server that's a little better for the world, and like a certain number of people will choose it. Then the competition, right?
I hope so.
It's some form of
That's nice and
democracy.
optimistic. I hope so. I'm
Yeah.
a, I'm a hugely pro competition person. If you were to ask me it like, hey, what's the thing holding ad tech back? What's my crazy publisher code? They don't want to share information. Why? Like what why would you ever hide information from a bidder? Why? Like what is the utility? Oh, because maybe I can direct sell it. No, like no, like I don't think that you can do that. And the number of publishers who can do that and have advertising carriers is magnificently small. What you need to do is tell that information that adds value to as many people as possible, and competition will make you more money. Competition helps us. It's the foundation of the
Is that
entire industry.
low-level data?
What
TV
was that?
sellers terrified of letting us know what show we're bidding on.
Oh man, you know what that reminds me of though? Everyone loves saying CTV is so different. Banners were the same way 10 years ago. That's why every ad exchange has like expose domain button because you could auction inventory and like I hope everyone on the who's listening to this noodles this. You could hold programmatic auctions and not tell people what site they were buying. That was a thing.
Yeah,
Because you were worried about your direct sales suffering. That was possible.
I remember that.
And publishers did it. They were like, okay, we're going to sell this anonymously. And then they realized over time, wait, this is hurting us more than it's helping us because people are unable to optimize their campaigns properly. And our brand has value and our domain has value, et cetera, et cetera. But CTV is there right now where they're like, okay, we're going to maintain our direct sales channels. But by the way, we're going to cut deals under our direct sales prices with middlemen, like via curation or via whatever. So there's going to be a bunch of like sketchy people calling agencies up and going, "Yo, I can get you Hulu for $10."
Yeah,
And like,
that's happening. That is happening. Can confirm.
like, come on, what world do we live in? This
Why do
is
publishers
terrible.
do that? It's because they get the money up front. Someone shows up with a bag of money and says, I want 1 million Hulu impressions for $10,000. They're like, okay.
No, CTV's dirty secret is fill rates are terrible. So we act like there's no CTV inventory. It's not true. There's not enough money in CTV to fill all of the
How
inventory.
is that a
So
secret? Like, when
everyone,
you watch CTV, you see the
I
same
know,
ad on front.
totally. Everyone acts like there's just no CTV inventory, and you watch a show, and it's like, wait, that's a backfill ad. Like I just got a backfill ad. I thought there
Yeah.
was no inventory. Everything should be a Procter and Gamble ad. Yeah, man, nah, that's a dirty little secret of CTV. It's also because there's so much trash. Like any environment where I can't verify where I'm running using JavaScript, people are gonna spoof. They're gonna spoof like crazy. Like they're gonna say something is something it's not, and that's why. Gosh, CTV gives me the willies. But I think competition is solving it, though, right? Competition is solving it because buyers are saying, "Hey, I'm just not going to buy this." So
Yeah, let's talk one
it is
more
what it
about.
is.
Let's do one more question. I want to ask about capital, about VC capital and private equity and angels. We're both startup founders. I spent most of 2021 and 2 pitching for money with this all these ideas for Chalice, which turned out to be right and profitable. And I couldn't raise very much. We raised 1.8 total, and everyone who invested was an ad tech professional. We didn't get any outside capital. People don't realize how important this is for competition, that to innovate is risk, right? If it was obvious, everyone would do it. And all the innovations in the future require on people doing trial and error, which takes money. They have to go through trial and error and build something they don't, not sure if it'll work or if people will buy it. That takes money. So capital fuels innovation, and capital's been really hard to get for ad tech innovation. And I want to know what your route has been like, being a few years later than Chalice.
Yeah. So I mean, I haven't started raising yet. I can tell you that I'm not going to bother going to institutional investors. I don't plan on it. I mean, the only institutional guys that are quote unquote institutional would be Imperium. I'd talk to Joe and Eric. That's about it. And that's because I've seen the cycles. When I talk about ad tech with my friends who are in like tech, where they're like seed, Series A, like VC,
Yeah,
treadmill guys, they live a very different life than I do.
treadmill
People
guys.
don't. Oh yeah, I mean it's the treadmill. Once you're on the treadmill, you can't get off. I'll never forget. I was talking to a guy who runs a VC fund, and
I
he
don't know if
was
it's
like,
the
"Yeah,
right
look,
metaphor, because you can get off a treadmill.
I guess it's true. Um, maybe the idea is that it's speed. It's going. Like once it's going, there's no turning it down. But yeah, you're right. But it's a thing, right? Where the expectation is that all of the capital means that you are hiring, spending the money and driving revenue, and then raising more capital. And like it's not a world that I see myself going down. But I also find they're not super interested in ad tech. Um, I
Wait,
think
what?
that the institutions, like all the VCs, no one wants to touch ad tech. It's
Unless
ugly.
you have AI now.
Um,
Now.
well, with AI, it's a thing. I'm betting that all the companies that talk about AI will raise very effectively. However, I would say part of this is our fault. So there is a sordid history of ad tech companies talking about revenue and managing their finances in ways that are irresponsible. I think that's a thing.
Hmm.
Like we saw rocket fuel blow up. Like we saw that happen in real time. Um,
Responsible to me. They bought me some great stuff.
I mean they certainly did, and I'm sure that their tack margin was spectacular. Like they were probably running campaigns at 80 or 90% margins. Um, but I think that ad tech as a whole does weird financial manipulations. Like the concept of tack is a weird, right? The concept of tack is I'm actually like a old school British East India Company trading house. And I have goods come in here that are ads, and then I go out and I buy similar goods, but not the same. And when it's a DSP bidding into an exchange, that's not actually what's happening. Like that's or it shouldn't be. But it is. They treat it that way,
You
where
mean
they're like,
yeah, traffic acquisition costs. You hear
yeah,
mentioned in
traffic acquisition
all
costs.
of Google and every other public ad tech company. And yeah, it's like as if you bought tea in India and sold it in England, but they're talking about ads.
Right. And things that are individually auctioned and supposed to be individually auctioned at transparent rates. Um, but they don't do it that way. And it gets even worse. The reason you see these huge blowups, like you saw the EMX blow up, that happened a little while ago. So this is another nasty financial manipulation, which is people treat this money that they have told publishers they are going to pay them that they have been paid by a DSP or by whoever for ads as though they're the trading house. So once that money comes in from the buyers, that's actually just capital we have on our balance sheet to spend on whatever we want. And they do this. This is a thing. A lot of ad tech companies have done this. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're not making money anymore. And our auction volume is down. But we spent all the money we were supposed to be paying our providers for their goods, the providers in this circumstance being the publishers. And publishers just get stuck with this huge bill where they're like, I thought I was going to get, millions of dollars for the goods that I sold. And now that money has just disappeared. Adtech has done some shenanigans like that where I get it. I get why an investor who gets the shenanigan doer, by the way, when they're presenting their balance sheet to the private equity fund, says, I'm the East India Company. I get all this money in over here, and then I go out and I buy as cheap as I can. When in reality, that's not what's going on. They don't have a slush fund. Yeah.
Well, hopefully
we'll see.
we'll educate people enough that corruption will be a little harder, and maybe raising money will get a little easier. We'll do our part.
I think it's getting there. I'm trying. I think it's there. I think it's getting better and better. Adtech is I say this all the time. I'm an Adtech optimist. Adtech is the best it's been. Like, it's crazy how efficient things are, how cool the technologies are, how well ads get delivered, how slick the supply chain is. The world was like people complain now, but my gosh, banners 10 years ago, you were buying.
There's a lot of good stuff just waiting to be adopted. There's a lot of good tech, and the big players are poking around. So we'll see.
Hey guys, speaking of whatever we're speaking of, the Prophet's knocking at the door. Do you want to check in with him before we end the show?
Oh yeah. Let's see.
Adam, sorry, you have to go. You're too controversial. He's a little scared of you. But let's bring in our Prophet. Gareth can talk to him. There we go.
Yeah.
It's about the future.
Are they actually going to bring Google up, Adam?
Oh yeah, those guys are fucked.
There you have it. I don't think you need more than that.
Bring Adam back. Yeah. Thanks. Wow, that was intense.
It was. Visits from the Prophet are always scary, but he's
Hopefully.
normally right, so I wouldn't want to be Google.
All right, so this is a live show. We're going to be taking questions from the crowd. The idea, buy-side people learn everything you wanted about the sell side. Sell-side people learn everything you always wanted to know about the buy-side. We're hoping you'll both show up. We're going to do it Fridays, noon on the East Coast. That's 9 a.m. on the West Coast. And, of course, 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., depending on daylight savings, in London.
All right. And with that, thanks everyone for watching.
Lots of people in London. Let's not leave them out. Okay.
All
right, everyone.
Thanks so much, guys.
Tune in next week. Same ad time. I just came up with that. I like that.
Take care.